Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra.
Welcome to this edition of Market Mantra, in which we give you a complete update on the economic, business and stock market news of the day. I'm Arjun Chaudhary and with me is my co-anchor in Hindi, Vishal Sharma.
नमस्कार, मार्केट मंत्र में आप सभी का बहुत बहुत स्वागत। प्रतिदिन की तरह आज भी हम देश, विदेश और दुनिया से आर्थिक, व्यापारिक और शेयर बाजार के ताजा समाचार आप तक लाएंगे और उन पर चर्चा भी करेंगे। चर्चा के लिए कार्यक्रम में आज ऑनलाइन आमंत्रित हैं आर्थिक विशेषज्ञ पुनीत जैन। सबसे पहले अंग्रेजी में हेडलाइंस के साथ है अर्जुन चौधरी।
Domestic stocks trade almost flat. Sensex closes near 58,200 points. Nifty settles near 17,300 level. Rupee weakens by 44 paise against the US dollar, and Brent crude oil prices rise to hover around $96 per barrel.
घरेलू शेयर बाजारों में लगभग सपाट कारोबार। सेंसेक्स 58,200 अंक के करीब और निफ्टी 17,300 के स्तर के आसपास हुआ बंद। डॉलर के मुकाबले रुपया हुआ 46 पैसे कमजोर और ब्रेंट कच्चे तेल की कीमतें बढ़कर $96 प्रति बैरल के आसपास पहुंची। कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत शेयर बाजार से करते हैं। घरेलू शेयर बाजार आज बिना किसी बड़े उतार चढ़ाव के साथ बंद हुए। कमजोर वैश्विक संकेतों के बीच सेंसेक्स और निफ्टी में मामूली कमी दर्ज हुई। सेंसेक्स 52,200 अंक के करीब जबकि निफ्टी 17,300 के स्तर के आसपास बंद हुआ। बॉम्बे स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का सेंसेक्स 31 अंक गिरकर 58,191 पर बंद हुआ, जबकि निफ्टी 17 अंक फिसलकर 17,315 पर आ गया। विस्तारित बाजार की बात करें तो बीएसई मिड कैप इंडेक्स 0.15% गिरावट में रहा, जबकि स्मॉल कैप इंडेक्स में 0.3% की बढ़त दर्ज हुई।
Sensex and Nifty today ended almost flat. Both stock indices slipped marginally amid negative global cues. Sensex closed near 58,200 points, while Nifty settled near 17,300 level. Sensex fell by 31 points to end at 58,191, while Nifty slipped 17 points to finish at 17,315. In the broader market at the BSE, the mid-cap index was down by 0.15%, while the small-cap index was up 0.30%. In the Sensex pack, shares of 13 companies gained, while 17 companies fell. Titan was the top gainer as it added 5.3%, followed by Power Grid, which gained 1.5%. IndusInd Bank climbed 1.1% and NTPC surged 1%. On the other hand, Mahindra and Mahindra ended 1.4% down. Ultratech Cement, SBI and TCS both fell 1.3% each. In sectoral indices, 8 sectors logged gains, while 11 logged losses. Consumer durables surged 2.1%, telecom sector gained 0.9%, and industrials index added 0.5%. On the other side, oil and gas declined 0.8%, energy sector fell 0.7%, and metal index ended 0.6% down. The overall breadth of the BSE trade was positive as shares of 1,862 companies gained, while 1,576 companies fell. Shares of 115 companies remained unchanged. And let's have a look at how the rupee performed today, Vishal.
जी अर्जुन, रुपए के प्रदर्शन पर नजर डालें तो अंतरबैंक विदेशी मुद्रा बाजार में आज रुपया $1 की तुलना में 46 पैसे कमजोर होकर अब तक के सबसे निचले स्तर पर पहुंच गया और 82 रुपए 33 पैसे प्रति डॉलर के स्तर पर बंद हुआ। विश्व की 6 प्रमुख मुद्राओं की तुलना में डॉलर की मजबूती दर्शाने वाला डॉलर इंडेक्स 112.11 पर कारोबार कर रहा था। और शेयर बाजार के बारे में ज्यादा बात करने के लिए हमारे साथ इस समय ऑनलाइन जुड़ चुके हैं आर्थिक विशेषज्ञ जी। हेलो
We're joined by Puneet Jain, the market expert, and we will be joined by him shortly and discuss what happened in market today. Please remember that the market actually fell marginally by 31 points to close at 58,191. That's the Sensex, and the Nifty slipped only 17 points to finish at 17,315. Vishal, we must remember that right now there's a lot of a choppy trade in the markets with the volatility index still under 20. It's at the 19 range right now, and I'm sure our experts will agree with that. And we'll have to see what the FII, DII figures are right now. But once again, the market has bounced back despite falling yesterday. And we're seeing that despite the cues from the US markets, the markets have been holding steady. And that's very important because we're seeing a lot of purchasing by the DIIs and the small investors who see value investing in the market right now. But experts do caution that we must be very careful while entering the market. So usually the expertise advice is to buy on dips and sell on rises.
जी, मार्केट में बहुत शेयर बाजारों में उतार चढ़ाव बना हुआ है, और जैसा कि आपने कहा अर्जुन, की विशेषज्ञों का यही कहना है, बाजार के जानकारों का यही कहना है कि बहुत ही सावधानी पूर्वक अगर आप निवेश कर रहे हैं तो बहुत सावधानी पूर्वक निवेश करें और अच्छे से सोच समझ कर निवेश करें। और हमारे साथ इस समय फोन लाइन पर हमारे आज के विशेषज्ञ पुनीत जैन जुड़ गए हैं। पुनीत जैन जी, नमस्कार, कार्यक्रम में आपका स्वागत।
धन्यवाद
जी। पुनीत जी, आज बहुत ही कोई बड़ा उतार चढ़ाव मार्केट में नहीं देखा गया और सेंसेक्स और निफ्टी में बहुत ही मामूली कमी दर्ज हुई है। क्या कहेंगे आज के कारोबार को देख करके आप?
देखिए, ये बात सही है कि आज बाजार में कोई बहुत ज्यादा उतार चढ़ाव नहीं था, लेकिन फिर भी हम देखें तो आज बाजार शुरुआती दौर में नीचे था और फिर वहां से रिकवरी शुरू हुई। और अगर ग्लोबल मार्केट को देखें तो एशिया में और अमेरिका में काफी गिरावट थी। उसके बावजूद भारतीय बाजारों में हमने बाइंग देखी। हम ये ट्रेंड काफी दिन से देख रहे हैं कि जो इंडियन मार्केट्स हैं वो आउट परफॉर्म कर रही हैं ग्लोबल मार्केट्स को, क्योंकि जो डोमेस्टिक इन्वेस्टर्स हैं वो यहाँ पर काफी पॉजिटिव सेंटिमेंट है। हम देख रहे हैं इकोनॉमिक डेटा भी जो है वो भी काफी पॉजिटिव आ रहा है। तो कुल मिलाकर मैं कहूंगा कि हालांकि ग्लोबल लेवल पर तो मार्केट्स के सामने काफी चैलेंजेस हैं अभी, लेकिन जो भारतीय बाजार है, हमारे डोमेस्टिक मार्केट्स हैं, ये काफी अच्छा प्रदर्शन कर रही है और आउट परफॉर्म कर रही है ग्लोबल मार्केट्स को।
Puneet, just for the benefit of our listeners, the FII, FPIs were the net sellers to the tune of 2,251 crore rupees in the equity markets today, and the DIIs are once again the net buyers to the tune of 545 crore rupees. The market fell only marginally. Clearly, there was strong support by the DIIs, but I'm sure our listeners want to know that apart from what happened in the market today, what's likely to happen on the markets next week? Because we have right now wide participation by small investors as well who are listening in to Market Mantra.
Arjun, you're right. Although it is always very difficult to predict what is going to happen next week, but what we have observed is that the markets in India particularly, they have been outperforming on the back of good investments into mid-cap and small-cap stocks. If you look at what FIIs do, they usually own large-cap stocks and then they sell them, and domestic funds, mutual funds, etc., they buy them. But retail participation is largely concentrated in the mid-cap and small-cap space. And today also, if you see, the small-cap index actually outperforms the large caps, and it went up while they were marginally lower. So clearly, the retail participation in India, we already have a record number of demat accounts. We have almost 10 crore demat accounts in India now, which is a very large figure. So if so many retail guys are participating, I think that market is showing that strength. Also, we find that the inflows into mutual funds, they continue to be quite robust. They are strong, and therefore the domestic institutions are also able to keep buying. They're not selling. And FIIs, we all know, have been selling. They were buyers actually in the month of August and September a little bit. Mostly in September they were sellers. But in spite of it, I think FIIs continue to be dictated by global factors rather than domestic factors right now.
So looking at the US markets as a point of reference, the Dow Jones actually fell by 347 points and the Nasdaq was down by 75 points in the afternoon. On Money Matters, we discussed about the third quarterly results that are going to be released, especially by the IT companies, the bellwether stocks, Infosys, TCS, Wipro, with the Nasdaq down and the sentiment that we are seeing in the US markets. So what kind of revenue guidance, fundamentals are we going to see with these tech companies? And more importantly, technically, how do you see the price moving? Because, experts like yourself have been saying that to buy on dips and to sell on rise. So how do you see the price movements in the IT index?
So interestingly, Arjun, see, NASDAQ in US, which is a tech-heavy index, it has fallen very sharply. It has fallen about 45% from its peak. And technology stocks in America continue to be quite weak. In fact, the loss is about 40-45% compared to about 20-22% for Dow Jones. So clearly, technology stocks have not been in favor. Even in India, if you see, IT companies like the large caps like TCS, Infosys, have all been facing selling pressure, largely because the FIIs have been selling. However, when I look at the guidance, which has been provided by most IT companies and the polls which are coming through, we are still expecting IT companies in India to post very good numbers for this quarter. In fact, the expectations are the profits will rise by 7 to 10% quarter on quarter, even for the quarter which ended September. So I think IT, and partly because of the rupee depreciation, so the revenues go up in terms of rupees and the profits go up. So my own guess is that next week when we see the IT numbers, they will be very impressive, maybe 8 to 10% growth in profits quarter on quarter, and therefore valuations become even cheaper. So my own sense has been that those investors who are patient and that they would like to buy good quality stocks, I think it would still be smart to keep buying into IT companies, large caps, which are very profitable, which give good dividends. I expect numbers from IT companies to be quite good next week.
Well, you mentioned about IT Nifty. In fact, it fell by only 17 points, which is less than 0.1%, in fact 0.09%, which is almost negligible. In fact, it was an outperformer in many ways. Just coming back to how the US markets are performing, because it has a direct link to not only our equity markets but also the currency market. The US dollar, and if you look at the US dollar index, it's gone up once again to 112.51, and that's weakened the rupee even further. It is weakened by more than 40 paise. How do you see the markets looking at it? Because the psychology, the underlying sentiment is still strong. We're seeing strong support levels despite the weakening of the rupee. Why is that?
So currency worldwide, not only in India, Indian rupee, all currencies, as you know, are under tremendous pressure vis-a-vis the US dollar. That is because the interest rates in US have risen quite sharply, and most investors are withdrawing money from other markets, and they're investing in either US currency denominated bonds or basically treasuries in USA. The yields are also going higher. So clearly, there is a flow of dollars away from all markets back into US, causing the dollar to rise. In fact, today we were watching a very important report, which is a jobs report. The US Fed looks at the job numbers to look at signs of weakness in the US economy. And today the US has again come out very strong. It is much stronger than what we expected. And as a result, people expect that US Fed will continue to raise rates. They will not pause. And we saw consequently the US futures fell very sharply. And again, the dollar index has gone up because it means that the Fed will continue to raise rates. So that is a joker in the pack. It's very difficult to predict what the US Fed will do. They have been saying that they would like economy to slow down. They would like jobs and unemployment to rise, actually, because unemployment in USA, the latest figures now are 3.5%, which is a record low unemployment in USA. So that continues to be a cause of worry. If they persist in raising rates excessively, then of course it will hurt global economy and could cause recession in USA and will have ripple effects on all other economies in the world.
जी पुनीत जी, डॉलर में लगातार जो मजबूती हम देख रहे हैं, तो क्या हम ये मान के चलें कि डॉलर की ये मजबूती एफआईआईज को घरेलू मार्केट से दूर रखने की अभी भी?
जी हाँ, बिल्कुल. देखिए, जो भी एफआईआईज हैं वो यूजुअली अमेरिका से या तो इन्वेस्टर्स का पैसा होता है या वो अमेरिका में वहां से बोरो करते हैं और इंडिया में और दूसरे इमर्जिंग मार्केट्स में वो इन्वेस्ट करते हैं. ज्यादातर अगर आप देखेंगे 70% से ज्यादा पैसा जो है वो अमेरिका से ओरिजिनेट होता है. और यदि वहां इंटरेस्ट रेट बढ़ते हैं तो जो इन्वेस्टर्स हैं उनको पैसा निकालना पड़ता है मार्केट से और वापस यूएसए में या तो लोन कम करते हैं अपना या वो इन्वेस्टर्स को देते हैं, क्योंकि वहां पर फिर वो लोकल, आप समझिए, जो बॉन्ड यील्ड 4% हो गई है, तो वहां वो इन्वेस्ट करना चाहते हैं। तो ये एक नॉर्मल प्रैक्टिस है। लेकिन मुझे लगता है क्योंकि इंटरेस्ट रेट्स का और बढ़ने की आशंका है अभी अमेरिका में, तो ये जो प्रोसेस है FII सेलिंग का, ये अभी चलता रहेगा। हमें उम्मीद थी कि ये प्रोसेस शायद अब खत्म हो जाएगा, लेकिन फिलहाल मुझे लगता है कि अभी और शायद 2 या 3 महीने हम हेवी FII सेलिंग देखेंगे, जिसका असर लार्ज कैप स्टॉक से ज्यादा रहता है। फॉर्चुनेटली इन इंडिया हमें उतना अभी तक उसका असर नहीं पड़ा है, पर ये आशंका जरूर है।
Puneet, mentioning about the treasury yields, and they're all in the green from the 3-month to the 30-year G-Secs offered by the U.S. government. In fact, the 2-year and the 1-year and the 5-year, they're both above 4.1%. In fact, as much as 4.3% for the 2-year. And the 10-year and the 30-year yields are almost touching 4%. So you see this diversion by the hedge funds away from the equity investment into debt-based investments in the U.S. market. Is that what we are seeing right now, which is why we are seeing net selling by the FIIs in the Bombay Stock Exchange and the NSE?
So, Arjun, yes, I think U.S. Treasury deals have very important, very significant impact on what happens to other assets across the world. If you just mentioned, the yields in USA are about 4% on various tenors, around 4%. And just about a year and a half back, this used to be 1.5%. So you can imagine the interest rates, effective interest returns for investors on government bonds in America has more than doubled in last 1.5 years. So obviously it is attracting investors, not only the US investors, but other global investors also to put money in America. So they find it more attractive and safer. So they are making money on interest rates, higher interest rates, as well as on stronger rupee, so on stronger dollar. So clearly for them it's a win-win, and they are withdrawing money for other assets. Again, I would say that if you look at European economies, Japanese economies, they have been the big sufferers. Earlier, it used to be the emerging market economies which used to suffer a lot. But interestingly, this time, it is the developed market economies in France, in Germany, in UK, in Japan, which are really paying the price for this strong dollar policy. But I don't see any change in that policy, at least in the short term. And my guess is that US Fed will continue to keep a strong dollar and strong interest rate bias, at least for the current calendar year. Maybe beginning January, they might change their stance a little bit.
So you're seeing with the metals sector that it's highly dependent upon what the government policy is regarding customs duty and the quota restrictions if they are lifted. But we're seeing investors looking to buy heavily into the shares offered by the metal index. It went down only marginally by 26 points in the Nifty metal. What would you advise investors who are looking at a sector where the beta is always been high as compared to the Sensex and Nifty?
So, in fact, in the last couple of years, during pandemic and in recent months, we have seen that metals have been very, very strong performers. They went up a lot initially. There was huge profit booking. They fell a lot. And like you said, there's a high beta for metal stocks. And we have seen metal prices crash because of the policies of the Fed. Mostly commodities have gone down, but the metal stocks, whether it is copper, aluminium, zinc, steel, they've all suffered a lot. However, if you look at the fundamentals of this sector, they're very attractive. And the P multiples have come down, the dividend yields have gone up, and the companies continue to be okay. We've just got data from steel companies for the last month's production, etc. And it seems to be okay. I mean, they're down a little bit. That the production and sales are down by about 8 to 10%, but they still seem to be in a fine place. So my guess again is that on valuation basis, some of the metal stocks will become very attractive. And we expect that the US Fed will stop raising rates somewhere in the next 2-3 months. And whenever that happens, I think commodities will be the biggest beneficiary. And of course, steel and metal stocks will be the first ones to react to that positive stimulus.
जी, अब रुक करते हैं अगली खबर का। भारतीय रिजर्व बैंक ने डिजिटल रुपए के बारे में जागरूकता बढ़ाने के लिए केंद्रीय बैंक डिजिटल मुद्रा पर एक संकल्पना पत्र जारी किया है। संकल्पना पत्र में देश में डिजिटल करेंसी जारी करने के उद्देश्यों, विकल्पों, फायदों और जोखिमों के बारे में बताया गया है। इसमें डिजिटल मुद्रा की प्रौद्योगिकी, डिजाइन विकल्पों, संभावित उपयोग, डिजिटल मुद्रा जारी करने से जुड़ी व्यवस्था और रिजर्व बैंक की भूमिका के बारे में चर्चा की गई है। संकल्पना पत्र में डिजिटल मुद्रा शुरू करने के बैंकिंग प्रणाली पर पड़ने वाले प्रभावों, मौद्रिक नीति, वित्तीय स्थिरता और गोपनीयता से जुड़े मुद्दों का भी विश्लेषण किया गया है। विज्ञप्ति के अनुसार रिजर्व बैंक जल्द ही विशिष्ट उपयोग के लिए प्रायोगिक आधार पर डिजिटल रुपया जारी करेगा। पुनीत जी, आपसे जानना चाहेंगे कि कितना महत्वपूर्ण ये फैसला है आरबीआई का, प्रायोगिक आधार पर, पायलट प्रोजेक्ट के आधार पर डिजिटल रुपया जारी करेगा, और अर्थव्यवस्था पर इसके क्या सकारात्मक असर आप देखते हैं आने वाले समय में?
देखिए, ये बहुत बड़ा कदम है। मुझे लगता है कि एक रेवोल्यूशन है पूरी मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी में। हम इसका असर हम आने वाले 10, 15, 20 सालों में देखेंगे। कोई इमीडिएटली इसका इम्पैक्ट आप नहीं देखेंगे, पर जो ई रूपी जिसको नाम दिया गया है, ई रूपी सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट इसको करेगी, इशू करेगी। और इनफैक्ट आप देखते हैं कि डिजिटल ट्रांजिशन ऑफ रूपी ऑलरेडी चल रहा है। जो हम डिजिटल पेमेंट्स करते हैं, ऑनलाइन पेमेंट करते हैं, वो डिजिटल ही है। लेकिन ई रूपी जो है उसके बहुत सारे फायदे होंगे। कई ऐसी जगहें हैं जहां पर फिजिकल करेंसी आप इस्तेमाल नहीं कर सकते, आपको डिजिटल करेंसी ही इस्तेमाल करनी है, जैसे मेटावर्स है, वहां पर आप डिजिटल करेंसी ई रूपी को इस्तेमाल कर पाएंगे। एक और इसका बहुत बड़ा असर मुझे लगता होगा कि जैसे जैसे ये जो ई करेंसी जो है सेंट्रल बैंक के द्वारा जो इशू की गई है, ये लेजिटिमेट मैं कहूंगा डिजिटल करेंसीज होंगी, ये जो क्रिप्टो करेंसीज हैं उनको ये खत्म कर देंगी, उसका कोई वजूद नहीं रहेगा। और जो ऑफिशियल डिजिटल करेंसीज हैं आने वाले समय में इसका बहुत फायदा होगा। एंड टू ग्रो द इकोनॉमी इन द डिजिटल मैनर, मुझे लगता है ई करेंसी का बहुत बड़ा रोल होगा।
Well, let's have a look at how the Asian markets perform now.
अमरीकी शेयर बाजारों में नुकसान के बाद आज एशियाई शेयर बाजारों में भी गिरावट रही। हांगकांग का हैंग सेंग 1.5% लुढ़क गया और जापान का निकेई 0.7% गिरावट में रहा। सिंगापुर का स्ट्रेट्स टाइम्स और दक्षिण कोरिया का कोस्पी 0.2% नुकसान के साथ बंद हुए। चीन के शंघाई कंपोजिट इंडेक्स में कारोबार नहीं हुआ। यूरोपीय शेयर बाजार अंतर्दिवसीय कारोबार के दौरान सीमित दायरे में कारोबार करते दिखे। लंदन का FTSE 100 और फ्रांस का कैक दोनों 0.1% की मामूली बढ़त में रहे। जर्मनी का डेक्स 0.2% के नुकसान के साथ कारोबार कर रहा था।
Just your brief take on the Japanese yen valuation to the US dollar. It's once again touching at 145. We discussed about the US dollar index strengthening to 112.51. What does this mean for the rest of the Asian currencies as well, including the yuan?
So, of course, yuan again, like Chinese currency, has fallen a lot. In fact, it has been one of the sharp losers, and it is now below 7, which was considered kind of holy grail for yuan. And yen also has fallen to about 145. Basically, whenever the currencies fall, they kind of increase inflation in that economy. So, we are likely to see inflationary pressures in all the economies where currencies have depreciated. However, their exports become somewhat more attractive. So there is a pro and con to the dollar to the rupee currency depreciation debate. But I think whenever the currency depreciates, and in Japan, interestingly, while other countries have intervened in the currency markets, Japanese government has maintained that they will not intervene and they will let the yen slide a little bit. But they're not intervening to support the yen. So maybe that is their way of bringing about higher inflation or higher growth in the Japanese economy. So they are the outliers as far as other countries are concerned. But I think other economies like UK, France, they are very concerned that dollar is going up and their currencies are depreciating.
Moving on to the U.S. stock market. U.S. stocks fell while the dollar and the treasury yields jumped yesterday. Wall Street indices fell as the Fed Reserve officials showed little sign of backing away from interest rate hikes ahead of the monthly U.S. jobs reports to be released later today. The Dow Jones declined by 1.2%, the S&P 500 lost 1%, and the Nasdaq Composite Index fell 0.7%. Puneet, while we have stressed on inflation bearing on the U.S. government policy, especially when it comes to what the discount rate is set by the Fed Reserve and what the yields are for its treasuries. When you look at the monthly jobs report, we look at the addition of new jobs to the economy. But what about the layoffs in the U.S. economy? A lot of the listed companies are actually laying off employees. And so even if they take on new employees, it's not in proportion to the laid off employees. How is that ratio worked out?
So that is a great debate which is going on, because anecdotally, we hear that a lot of layoffs are happening in USA. But when we get the data, like we've got the data today, it shows that new jobs have been created. So maybe the US Fed data is not capturing the real trends in America. And usually what happens is that it takes about 3 to 6 months for the US policy to work its way through the economy. So I'm still thinking that the Fed, that the US economy will slow down significantly in coming months. But right now the data that we are getting appears to show that the job market is strong. However, anecdotally, you are right. There are a lot of companies saying that they're laying off workers, and I think it will show up in the numbers, but maybe after 2 or 3 months.
Well, let's have a look at how the oil market has been performing. Oil today rose more than 1% and was headed for a second consecutive weekly gain. Crude prices climbed, supported by a decision of OPEC Plus to make its largest supply cut since 2020, despite concerns about the recession and the rising interest rates. In intraday trade, Brent crude was trading around $95.80 per barrel, while WTI crude prices were at $89.85 per barrel. Puneet, in a very short span of time, the price per barrel in US dollar terms has really spiked because of the supply cuts and the announcements. We're seeing that in the spot market and in the futures market as well. OPEC Plus wants it at $100 per barrel. What does this mean for inflation, which the Western Hemisphere is trying to curb, India is trying to curb? How do you see it being curbed if oil prices are going to go up like this?
So, of course, it's a big challenge, and OPEC is working absolutely like a cartel. They try to, and interestingly, the producers are not the major consumers of oil. So clearly, their interest is not in looking at controlling inflation. They're just focused on increasing their revenues and profits. And Russia and OPEC is working hand in glove for this purpose. America, of course, is trying to pressurize them to bring down prices. It's a complex geopolitical situation. I don't know how it will play out, but right now it appears to be quite hurtful to the world economy.
जी पुनीत जी, कच्चे तेल के उत्पादन में जो ओपेक प्लस देशों ने कमी कटौती करने का जो फैसला किया है, जाहिर सी बात है कि उससे अब कच्चे तेल की कीमतें भी बढ़ेंगी और आशंकाएं जताई जा रही हैं कि $100 प्रति बैरल के आसपास पहुंच भी सकती हैं। घरेलू अर्थव्यवस्था पर क्या असर, आप इसके क्या जोखिम देख रहे हैं?
देखिए, हमारे लिए ऑयल इंपोर्ट जो सबसे बड़ा इंपोर्ट का आइटम है, करीब $350 बिलियन, $1 बिलियन रोज का हम क्रूड ऑयल इंपोर्ट करते हैं और हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था पे इससे काफी असर पड़ता है। और मैं ये कहूंगा कि अगर सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज है हमारे लिए तो क्रूड ऑयल प्राइसेस को मैनेज करना है। तो डेफिनेटली जो अभी स्पाइक हुआ है, प्राइसेस ऊपर हुए हैं, इसका असर हमारी ग्रोथ पर भी पड़ता है, हमारे फॉरेन एक्सचेंज रिजर्व पर भी पड़ता है और इसका नेगेटिव असर पड़ता है। आई होप द प्राइसेस कम डाउन, लेकिन अनफॉर्चुनेटली हम इसके बारे में कुछ कर नहीं सकते क्योंकि एक ग्लोबल कमोडिटी है। वी हैव टू जस्ट एक्सेप्ट इट।
जी, और रुख करते हैं कीमती धातुओं का। मल्टी कमोडिटी एक्सचेंज में दिसंबर के लिए सोना की वायदा कीमतें ₹50 कम होकर 51,920 प्रति 10 ग्राम पर चल रही थी। दिसंबर अनुबंध वाली चांदी ₹110 की तेजी से 61,455 प्रति किलोग्राम पर कारोबार कर रही थी। उधर न्यूयॉर्क मर्केंटाइल एक्सचेंज में अंतर्दिवसीय कारोबार में सोना मंदी के साथ $1,715.50 प्रति औंस, जबकि चांदी बढ़त के साथ $20.70 प्रति औंस पर कारोबार कर रही थी। अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाजार में सोने में थोड़ी सी मंदी दिखाई दे रही है, $1,715.50 के आसपास। डॉलर की मजबूती ही क्या एकमात्र वजह है जो ये सोने में हमें गिरावट दिखने को मिल रही है?
जी बिल्कुल। अभी जो गोल्ड की कीमतें हैं वो डॉलर स्ट्रेंथ से ही नापी जा रही हैं और मुझे लगता है वही अभी आने वाले समय में उसका असर रहेगा।
Puneet, silver has also gone up $20.49. What about silver? It's an underrated precious metal.
So silver actually had fallen a lot. It fell to $17 and now it has rebounded. So it has really outperformed gold, but I don't think it is going to outperform gold by a very long margin. So whatever rally was there is done. And again, it will react to this overall situation.
जी पुनीत जी, आप कार्यक्रम में शामिल हुए और चर्चा के लिए और इतनी आपने उपयोगी जानकारी दी, इसके लिए आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद।
And before we close, a reminder of the headlines. Domestic stocks trade almost flat. Sensex closes near 58,200 points. Nifty settles near 17,300 level. Rupee weakens by 44 paise against the US dollar. And Brent crude oil prices rise to hover around $96 per barrel. And that's it in this edition of Market Mantra for now. Goodbye.
नमस्कार।
Market Mantra.